Okay, we will begin. Good morning, and thanks for being here today. A couple topics I wanted to just walk through, and then can turn to your questions. The first is the matter of taxes, which is going to be a huge topic in the state legislature this spring. And today, the county council will be getting a briefing about the results of a study that was just conducted by the Comptroller, and I'm sure you've seen some of the reporting on that study as far as its statewide and potential county implications. So we are going to begin our evaluation now at the county. And I think the overall message that we have is that we think the state legislature needs to know the facts before they act, and to proceed very carefully, because revenues are very volatile, and all we have at this point are projections, and we need to really begin to understand more carefully what this could mean for Montgomery County and for the state. So today is the beginning of the dialogue for the county council, and we anticipate this is going to take weeks and months to begin to work our way through to understand. So there's a packet included for tomorrow's agenda items. You can pull it out there, agenda item 1. But that's going to be a dominating issue this year. Second one that is not yet on paper, but is a big issue that I know you have heard about, is small cell infrastructure. And we are hearing that a bill is forthcoming in Annapolis that the industry has asked for, that would take away our authority, or try to, over our right-of-way, and enable the industry to come in and install small cell infrastructure in essentially whatever manner the industry sees fit. And that would be a big mistake, and if that legislation is introduced, I know it'll be a big topic of conversation, because residents have a lot of concerns about how new small cell infrastructure would be added to our streets and to our buildings. And while we all agree that we do need to move forward with the next generation of smaller infrastructure to improve wireless service for the residents, there's a big difference in how it gets done. And so we know that at the FCC, the Trump Pi FCC has been working to remove local government from the table over small cell infrastructure. We're very much hoping the state legislature won't follow suit, and just like the Trump Pi FCC, also try to remove local government from the table. We need to be at the table to negotiate with these telecom companies in order to ensure that any deployment that happens advances public goals and does not clutter up the roadway with unsightly, ill-designed infrastructure. So that's going to be a major topic. Again, we expect, we are now hearing that legislation will be introduced imminently, and there will be a lot of conversation about that. And around the country, other states have enacted legislation that removes local government from the table. As you probably don't know, but I serve on the FCC's Intergovernmental Affairs Advisory Committee. And I've been serving on that all through 2017, working with local government leaders and tribal leaders all across the country to develop our response to the proposal from industry around deployment of small cell infrastructure. So we have been working hard to explain to the FCC that we can work together to deploy new infrastructure. We don't, the best way to go is a collaborative road. And so we will expand our advocacy from the FCC to the Maryland State Legislature if indeed this legislation moves forward. Another topic is we begin our public hearings this week on our capital budget, our construction budget for schools and roads and libraries and parks and community centers. And it's always one of the highlights of the budget year. And this year will be, as you have previously noted, the county executive's final submission. And the initial recommendation from the county executive for school construction is very strong, record level of investment in school construction in both absolute dollars and as a share of the capital budget. So no question, meeting the ongoing needs of school construction is one of the county's top priorities, one of the council's top priorities. And people are looking to us to, keep pace with development in this county by investing in school construction. And so what you will see in testimony tonight is certainly the views from our community leaders, our school community leaders, about the need for new projects in their clusters. And I know the council has been and will continue to be very supportive of new investment in school construction. Brief detour for a more a fun item. Last week, the county executive sent a letter to the county council, specifically to Council Member Leventhal and myself, agreeing with the request that we had made to open up one of our signature economic and development incentive programs to local breweries. And he did agree with the change that we had suggested, which is exciting to see. The basic outline of it is, in order to reduce office vacancies in Montgomery County, the county executive created a lease incentive program. And if you're taking Class A or B office space, then the county executive's economic development fund will participate in your initial lease cost. So it's an incentive to take lease space. But breweries were not eligible because they have a retail component often. And we suggested that breweries should be eligible, wineries, distilleries, any local alcohol manufacturer, regardless of the retail component. And the county executive indeed expressed his support for that. I understand there's a brewery coming into downtown Silver Spring very soon called Parallel World, and they intend to apply for that. So already we're seeing some positive response for this incentive program. Last item is two topics related to WMATA. First, I think we're very strong on the need for the state to enact legislation creating dedicated funding, and this week will be hearings in Annapolis, and the council will be represented in testimony and working to support the state legislature in achieving the dedicated revenue funding for Maryland's portion, and doing anything else we can do to get Virginia and DC and the federal government to provide their portions. We are also sending a letter to the WMATA board and this week about urging them to follow through on their commitment to eliminating turnbacks so that every train goes all the way to Shady Grove. A lot of people don't realize that we could really relieve crowding on the Red Line if the trains went all the way to the end, and that there's tremendous room to grow metro service in Montgomery County on both ends of the Red Line by sending all trains to the end and putting 8 cars on every train. And in fact, if you were to put 8 cars in every train and have them all go to the end of the line, you would have a very substantial increase in service in Montgomery County. So this was a priority that the county council got behind several years ago and successfully advocated for Metro to run the trains all the way to the end. However, in the submission of the budget for next year, WMATA has said that they are not intending to deliver on this. This is one of the top up-county transportation priorities, and we need Metro to follow through on its commitment and run all the trains to Shady Grove so that we can relieve crowding. That is one of the busiest stations in the entire metro system. And we need more capacity all the way to Shady Grove. So those are my topics. And welcome hearing about questions or topics that you have. Thanks very much.
So today is the deadline for people to submit their public input on the Metro budget, is that right?
I don't know about the deadline. I'm not sure. It might be the deadline. I don't know. Okay, certainly we have submitted ours, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I saw it in a press release that came out. But if that is true, then is there anything more people can do?
Well, yeah, I think people in the community can send in comments to the Metro board and to Metro generally now, whether email or over Twitter or good old-fashioned handwritten letter. Now's the time that the board needs to hear from people in Montgomery County that we want to expand service, that we are, that there's a real need here in this county to provide service all the way to Shady Grove. And they had previously agreed to it because there was a strong demand for it. But we want to get Metro going on the positive path of increasing ridership. One of the best ways to do it is going to be to run the trains all the way to Shady Grove and to Glenmont, so that we can get more people riding the Red Line.
Does the county know what percentage of trains on the Red Line turn around at Grosvenor?
Historically, it's been half. We can try to track down whether that has changed, but that was, I know when we first advocated to run all the trains to Shady Grove, it was half, and it's half in Silver Spring today. So, again, it tells you if it's half, then running every train to Shady Grove will double the service. And if you take all the trains from 6 to 8 cars, then you're expanding service by 40% on each, 20% on each train. So, there's a lot of room to grow Metro service in Montgomery County, no question about it.
We have this Amazon bid out there.
Yeah.
Do you think that this could impact that at all? You have people who may want to live in the Shady Grove area, that sort of thing. What impacts could not having this full service for scouts for Amazon, what impact could that have there?
Well, I definitely think that following through on the funding agreement for Metro is a crucial piece of the region's response to the opportunity to bring Amazon. And I think it's the best argument yet for enacting the legislation across all the jurisdictions, because whether you're from DC or Montgomery County or Northern Virginia, you have the same stake. And this region doesn't work without Metro. It's the #1 transportation policy in the region. And so enacting the funding agreement will really be a strong showing about the region's ability to work together to solve its biggest challenges. This particular issue, I think, is kind of the issue of the moment. And I think from the perspective of what will help attract Amazon, I think it's the bigger picture. We've got to have a funding agreement. We got to have a sustainable governance that can really tackle the issues and get this metro system back to the world-class operation that it once was.
What does an ideal funding agreement look like from the county's perspective?
Well, each jurisdiction, stepping up and providing a source of funding that can be used to leverage bonds. That's the key, is that every jurisdiction has to provide a bondable revenue source to Metro. So what we're doing, seeking the Maryland legislature to do, is to grant a stream of taxing authority, essentially, to WMATA, which WMATA then owns, and WMATA can float bonds from it. So that is what Maryland's offer is. DC and Northern Virginia may want to do it differently, but the point is it's got to be bondable revenues. We've got to turn that $150 million from each jurisdiction into billions in a fund up front that we can then move quickly to replace equipment and expand infrastructure. So, different jurisdictions can use different revenue sources, but the key is it's got to be bondable. Doug?
So, assuming that WMATA cranked their budget numbers correctly, What would the council support in terms of, say, a fare increase or reduction in services to pay for the trains going from Grosvenor to Shady Grove?
You know, the county council does not have to identify fare increases or service changes in order to advocate for a particular service improvement. You know, what I think we need to do is make this a priority, and where there's a will, there's a way. So we need to get WMATA's attention to the strong demand for this service and let them know that, you know, we're all working together here to invest in WMATA and to strengthen WMATA over the long term. And so we need to respond to the needs of the Montgomery County community. And we'll see what it takes for them, you know, how they have to revise all their pieces to fit together. But what we've seen historically is that when something is a priority, then it'll get funded.
The fact that Metro promised to have this, you know, up and running by summer of 2018, and now it's looking like it might not happen, what is the county feeling?
Well, we want them to stay on track. You know, we want Metro to follow through on this. It is a crucial transportation capacity improvement for people who live in Montgomery County. And so we're disappointed that the WMATA budget doesn't include that, but we know it's not too late. And so if we do our job now and press WMATA to follow through on the plan, we're hopeful that they will. They certainly are looking to generate a lot of support out of Maryland for their long-term funding package. And, you know, we need to demonstrate that this is a service that really works for people in Montgomery County. So, you know, now is not the time to retrench on service in the county. Now is the time to really demonstrate that this is the kind of priority that people can get behind.
There's a bill being introduced tomorrow about conflicts of interest and financial disclosures that you're sponsoring on behalf of the county executive. Is that in response to anything specific?
No, my understanding is this is from the Ethics Commission. Is that right? So the Ethics Commission, you know, meets and evaluates county policies and county laws on its own, and then occasionally makes a recommendation to the county for legislation. So, you know, the courtesy of the council is to introduce that legislation if it's requested. And so that is what, you know, the introduction of that legislation will be tomorrow.
From your experience, have you seen county employees leave government to go and lobby? Is that an issue?
I have a little, you know, it certainly has happened. It's not a situation like the federal government, you know, where you have these revolving doors. It's not a, but it certainly has happened. We will consider that legislation, you know, at committee and in the course of council work. I don't have a real in-depth view on that yet. I'm still just receiving that information.
On state revenues, given the new tax structure, there's been a lot of speculation that state revenues would increase. Is that what the county is hearing in these initial forecasts?
Well, you know, it is a possibility. You know, the prediction is that by raising taxable income, that more income will be subject to the income tax, which will result in some increase in state revenue and perhaps some increase in county revenue. But that is a prediction based on a theory of how taxpayers will behave. And I think the reality is we don't yet know. And we don't yet, you know, there's a lot of assumptions there about what incomes will be. You know, let's not forget that we don't know what incomes will actually be next year. Those incomes haven't even been earned. So there's a lot of volatility in this work, and you know, it's important to get it right. And on the one hand, you don't want to rush out there, enact some kind of a change that proves to be, you know, overreaching or over-solving. And on the other hand, you don't want to sit back and do nothing. It's got to be a conscious, deliberate policy. But I think at the moment, the key issue is let's get facts. Let's work on the basis of facts and see where the facts lead us.
Governor Hogan has proposed potential tax cuts in response to rising revenues, and the General Assembly is somewhat discussing it along those lines too. Is the council kind of saying, let's wait, or does the council even have a unified message yet on this issue? Given that the county's looking at a tight 6-year fiscal window here, revenues possibly declining in the county, and seeing, hey, maybe there's going to be more revenue at the state that'll trickle down to us and perhaps fix our fiscal situation. Is there any kind of sentiment among the council yet?
Well, today at 12:30, we're beginning our state legislation discussion. So we're going to have a briefing from council staff about the Comptroller's report. I think that the council, is very focused on this issue. I mean, this is half of what we've been talking about for the last, really, since the tax reform passed in Congress. But I think that our posture at this point is this is the beginning of the conversation. Let's not rush. Let's get this right. That's the crucial point. And at this point, how much do people really know about taxpayer behavior, about incomes, and how close will any proposed changes be? What will the winners and losers be of different changes? Those kind of things need to be really thought through and vetted out and carefully assessed. So this is going to take some time. I think that's the point, is let's proceed carefully, let's proceed methodically, let's not just jump on a bandwagon. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Briefly.